Hello, folks, and welcome back to another case study, where I talk about and analyze some of the strangest wilderness missing person cases out there. Before I begin, I thought I'd let you know I'm working on a new volume of cases, including some fairly recent disappearances, so stay tuned for that. Meanwhile, I'll be focusing on the disappearance of a then 9-year-old girl who went missing from a group home in 2019. And despite the amount of time since her disappearance, this case still really tugs at me, and will continue to do so until we get some answers. In fact, I covered her disappearance briefly in a recent volume, but wanted to highlight this one in my case study series. So if you're not already familiar with the case, it follows the baffling disappearance of Serenity Dennard, who seemed to vanish into thin air, despite the largest and most thorough search and rescue operation South Dakota has ever seen. Even after 2+ years of subsequent searches, not a single clue has surfaced pointing to the girl's whereabouts. Serenity's disappearance gained national attention, and in fact, Representative Dusty Johnson visited the group home to have a look around for himself. Allegations tainted the home's reputation for a long while following the disappearance, and even now, many believe the home is hiding a sinister secret. So let's begin with a summary of this case. Like many children her age, the adventurous 9-year-old girl had a habit of running away from home, and was undergoing treatment at the Black Hills Children's Home in Rockerville. On the morning of February 3rd, 2019, around 10:45 a.m., Serenity was last seen by 2 of the home's employees at the home's indoor gym. During this time, the employees were distracted by another child who was having behavioral issues. Soon thereafter, they realized that she was nowhere in sight and set out to look for her, but by then it was too late. Serenity Dennard had disappeared. According to the Rapid City Journal, the 2 employees responsible for supervising the children on that cold morning were quickly terminated. It was stated, however, that a visiting family, quote, caught sight of her as she was leaving the gym building on campus and followed her until she disappeared from sight and was never seen again, end quote, the outlet reported. A grandmother and her granddaughter were dropping off another child at the time and spotted Serenity running off. The grandmother alerted staff at the children's home, while the granddaughter stayed in the car and watched Serenity disappear into the trees. This was the last confirmed sighting of Serenity. Now, even though the grandmother alerted staff to the girl's sighting, was not reported until later on that afternoon, hours after she went missing, leading many to suspect that either the staff or the home's owners had something to hide. When the Pennington County Sheriff's Office was finally contacted, they immediately conducted a search given their concerns that Serenity was not dressed for the worsening winter weather that was moving into the area. The mass effort to find the girl would sprawl into one of the most exhaustive missing person searches in South Dakota's history. More than 1,000 people from 60 different agencies participated in those first 6 months, the outlet reported. Quote, "We've been doing them for many months, many searches a month," end quote, Captain Tony Harrison stated of the sheriff's office. By January 2020, the search effort slowed, but ended up covering 4,500 miles of rough terrain, with more than 220 leads and 465 interviews conducted. Her adoptive parents, Chad Dennard and Darcy Gentry, would eventually hire Doug Counts, a retired FBI agent, to assist in the investigation and search, but ultimately, he was unable to find any clues. The Pennington County Sheriff's Office announced on January 28th of 2001 that it was suspending the former search effort for Serenity, but that the investigation into her disappearance would continue. Now let's go ahead and look at the home's history. According to the home's webpage, the Children's Home Society of South Dakota, or chssd.org, it was established in 1893 and is South Dakota's oldest human services nonprofit organization. Founders William and Elizabeth Sherrard were very dedicated to children in need. Before establishing the home in Sioux Falls, they helped care for abused and neglected children in their home in Clark County. The home has continued the founders' legacy by serving families, individuals, and children of all ages. Many of these children are victims of domestic violence, abuse and/or neglect, or traumatic life events. The organization also works with caring parents to help children with emotional or behavioral needs. Over the years, the center has provided homes for thousands of children through their fostering and adoption programs. So as you can see, the center has changed the lives of many. Well, we've heard the good, but what about the bad? Well, I wasn't able to find much information that predates Serenity's disappearance, but according to the sources from CodaTV.com, a report by 2 government agencies detailed, quote, errors made by the Black Hills Children's Home from the moment 9-year-old Serenity Dennard ran away on a bitter cold morning in February. The report indicates that the home's initial response to her disappearance was disorganized, and staffers waited too long to call 911. The State Department of Health and Department of Social Services each reviewed the home's response after Serenity walked away on February 3rd from the home's Rockville campus. The agencies presented the home with a corrective action plan, including a directive to implement a new policy that in the event a child runs off, staffers should call 911 immediately, and the plan must clearly identify who is responsible for making that call. Bill Coulson, the executive director of the home's parent organization, stated that children have run away in the past, but have always been located shortly after. Apparently, Serenity's disappearance was an isolated incident. It was also noted that Serenity had attempted to run away on other occasions, but was always located soon thereafter. So what makes February 3rd, 2019 any different than the previous runs? Well, it was also noted that the staff of the children's home was operating on 3 different radio frequencies on the day Serenity disappeared, which did not allow anyone to hear the same thing at the same time, causing to the chaos. Now let's talk about the Children's Center itself. Located at 24100 S. Rockerville Road in Rapid City, South Dakota, the Children's Center sits at the edge of the Black Hills National Forest and is about 10 miles south of Rapid City. The property is completely surrounded by miles of ponderosa pine, aspen, oak, and spruce forests, making it quite difficult for anyone, let alone a 9-year-old, to traverse easily through it. As we can see from the satellite images, this gives us an idea of just how remote the center truly is. South Rockerville Road is really the only way to get to and from the center, and is located about 1.5 miles north of Highway 40. About 5 miles north of the center is the town of Rockerville and Highway 16. But to the east and the west of the children's home is a whole lot of nothing. Nothing but mountainous terrain and dense forest. It's difficult to determine which direction Serenity may have gone, that is, if she went on her own accord. But if she was abducted, she could have been taken one of 2 directions, north or south. The odds were most certainly against search and rescue. The area is less than 10 miles from Mount Rushmore and in some of the most rugged and remote terrain in all of South Dakota, according to search and rescue personnel. Now let's switch gears and talk about the massive search that followed her disappearance. At the time she went missing, Serenity was 4'9", roughly 100 pounds, blue eyes with shoulder-length dirty blonde hair, and was last seen wearing a long-sleeved gray shirt with flowers, a purple tank top, dark stone-washed jeans, and black snow boots. This was confirmed by the visiting grandmother and granddaughter, who were the last known witnesses to see her as she entered the woods. According to a news release from Sheriff Kevin Tom, the first round of searches included more than 1,500 personnel from 66 agencies who logged in more than 6,000 cumulative miles during 220 separate search attempts over the course of weeks. Cadaver dogs were also introduced into the effort, and it was noted that they had initially picked up scents, but officials had no way of knowing if the scents originated from Serenity. As the weeks turned into months, resources began to dry up, and not a single clue pointed to the girl's whereabouts, leading many to speculate that she had been taken out of the area. Investigators looked into 275 leads in South Dakota and throughout the nation with the help of the FBI and other law enforcement agencies. As part of the investigation, 538 people were also interviewed and/or contacted. In the year following her disappearance, the Pennington County Sheriff's Office has led aggressive two-pronged efforts, and that the search track that has engaged 1,200 trained personnel from more than 65 agencies using scent and cadaver dogs, aircraft, thermal devices, and many other techniques to look for Serenity's body and/or evidence. Pennington County authorities have not ruled out anything, but their work theory is that Serenity ran off into the woods, got lost and froze to death or died of hypothermia or exposure. Yet until Serenity and/or any evidence is located, her disappearance will remain a mystery that has captivated, saddened, and in some cases, angered people in South Dakota and beyond. As the one-year anniversary following her disappearance approached, South Dakota Newswatch interviewed several people close to Serenity on her case. The report has led to several discoveries, including that Serenity was known to run away frequently from her family home in Sturgis. Runaway prevention was part of the reason for her placement and part of the treatment plan at Black Hills Children's Home. 1 week before she disappeared, Serenity had tried to run away and was placed on protocol of, quote, arm's length only monitoring. But for reasons unexplained, the strict runaway prevention protocol effort that was put into place had ended a day or two before her fateful February 3rd escape, according to Serenity's adoptive father and wife, who were her primary caretakers. The Children's Home, run by the nonprofit Children's Home Society, was cited by state and government regulators after Serenity's disappearance for waiting 80 minutes to call 911, for having radios that were on different channels, and for lacking planning and training in runaway prevention. The two employees, who had direct physical oversight of Serenity at the time of her disappearance, were fired after she ran away. As of late January 2020, security cameras and doors with security alarms were proposed for the home, but won't be purchased or installed until the society receives the funding grant it had applied for. Serenity's adoptive parents, now divorced, and their loved ones have all had their sorrow and stress worsened by criticism and outrageous false statements on social media and a website created about the case. Serenity's adoptive mother has been accused of involvement in her disappearance, even though she was at work when the girl went missing. Serenity's adoptive father has also gone through his fair share of harassment as well. Deputy Jamin Hartland, the Pennington County Sheriff's Office lead detective on the case, said the investigation is the most extensive in Pennington County history, and so far has shown no evidence of abduction or any other form of foul play. Quote, in this investigation, As in any investigation, obviously we can't rule out any possibility until we know what exactly happened to Serenity, end quote, Hartland told Newswatch. Quote, "We have no solid evidence thus so far to suggest that this was an abduction or anything other than a girl who ran away from a facility and has yet to be found," end quote. Later that year, another missing person was reported about an hour south of the children's home. Larry Genslinger, a 66-year-old hunter from Howard, was last seen on October 1st of 2019 when he went elk hunting with his nephew near 6 Mile and Ditch Creek roads. The two became separated, and Larry wasn't seen again until May of 2020, when his body was discovered by a nearby resident repairing a fence in the Deerfield Lake area. The body was discovered about 400 yards east of Williams Draw Road, a little over 2 miles north of his last known location, and in an area that had been searched previously, repeatedly, by hundreds of professional search and rescue personnel. Unfortunately, no cause of death has ever been released. This just goes to show you how easily one can disappear out there in those woods, even for an experienced hunter. So what in the hell happened to the girl? Well, after combing through various online sources and news reports, I believe one of two things happened to the girl. We all know now that Serenity has had a history of running away. This is exactly why she was being treated at the facility. It was also stated that she tried running away just a week before her disappearance. It's easy to assume that her behavior was no different on that cold February morning as she entered the wilderness, only to become lost, disoriented, and eventually left to the mercy of it. The other possibility is abduction. It's also easy to imagine someone taking advantage of her behavior. But despite intense investigative measures, interviews, and even FBI assistance, no evidence really points to the scenario. So based on what we do and don't know, I believe the most likely scenario is the first one. That Serenity entered those woods, became lost and disoriented, and succumbed to the harsh terrain and inclement weather. If she is ever found deceased, it wouldn't surprise me if exposure was the cause. And just like the elk hunter's disappearance that followed hers, there's just no way of knowing what exactly occurred out there in the hours, days, and weeks following their disappearances. Could animal predation play a role in it? Sure. Mountain lions, coyotes, and fox are the larger resident predators, while black bears, while seen occasionally, are rare in the Black Forest National Forest area. If this did play a role, I believe the search effort would have yielded some clues. But nothing was found. Not a single shred of clothing, footprints, or any indication that Serenity was ever even out there. I guess that's just what makes this case so baffling. The total lack of clues in the state's largest search effort ever. However, this seems to be a common theme in many of the other cases I cover. We can only hope that in time, new clues will be discovered, uncovering what exactly may have occurred out there, and to provide a little closure to the family. We can only hope that the collective memory of her disappearance will never fade, far into the future of that home, and that the rules and regulations will be enforced. It's a sad and tragic example of how something good can go so wrong so quickly. A 9-year-old girl versus Mother Nature versus a massive search effort. I will definitely be keeping an eye on any news that may come forward in the years to come. But for now, we can only speculate on what we do and don't know. And I believe that in time, some clues will surface pointing to her whereabouts. Thanks for joining me in this segment, and may we never forget the sad and strange disappearance of Serenity Dennard.